started. Well, it's 7 o'clock now, so Dave and Dan and I will get rolling. So thank you all for joining. I hope your New Year's off to a great start. My name is Nick Allenson. I'm the programs coordinator at Voile Canada. I oversee the cruising, CanSail, PCOC, ROCM portfolios, as well as a couple other things. I'm joining you from Kingston, Ontario, which is where Voile Canada's head offices are, from a house here on 3rd Ave. And it is cold. Actually, it wasn't that cold today. It was kind of wet snow, but there's lots of skating around, which is what I've been doing to keep myself busy lately. So thanks again for joining. We're going to record the session. In fact, I think I've already started the recorder. I will follow up tomorrow with a link to the recording, as well as a PDF version of the presentation that we're going to share. Again, if you have any questions, we'll save them to the end. But if there's something that you can't wait for the end of the presentation, please send it in the chat, and I'll do my best to either answer it there or save it to the end of the presentation. So Dave and Dan are on the call as well. There are IEs who are conducting this meeting, and they'll get their intros in a minute or two. Dave is running the slideshow for us, so thanks very much, Dave. This is the first time that I haven't had to run the slideshow on one of these things, so that's a nice thing. So let's get started. Go ahead with the first slide, Dave. So as I mentioned, Nick Allenson from Kingston. I oversee cruising, keelboats, power, navigation, PCOC, ROCM. I'm also on the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee at Voile Canada, and I also work within the CanSail portfolio. So basically tons of programs stuff I do at Voile Canada. A couple pictures of me here on the right. That's our sailboat that we had for a couple of years, an Allbird 30 that we restored. That's my husband Kevin and I going for our first sail on the boat after it was in our driveway being fixed up for almost 2 years. And there's a much younger Nick Allenson there racing on a classic wooden boat in Toronto in our class, if you're familiar. We'll go to the next slide. So we have tons of people joining us tonight. I just wanted to take a shout out to almost all of the provinces. We've got people from BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Sail Newfoundland. So in fact, all of our provincial partners are here tonight. Thank you so much for signing up. It's always very exciting when we see the registrations roll in, and it's great to see this interest in becoming cruising instructors. So thank you very much for joining. We'll go to the next slide, Dave. So Voile Canada, if you're not familiar, we're the governing body for the sport of sailing. So we work closely with Transport Canada and Sport Canada to oversee the development of sailing in Canada. We also have a high performance pillar, so that would be the Canadian Olympic Sailing Team. And we oversee the development of, we oversee the programming for development throughout sailing in Canada. So there's a huge, broad range of things that we do. We do offer training for power as well. We have outboard, basic outboard power, basic power, and intermediate power. We also can issue pleasurecraft operator cards, PCOC cards, and we have courses for that. The ROCM program, which stands for Radio Operator Certificate Maritime, is owned by one of our partners, the Canadian Power and Sail Squadron, now called CanBoat. And it's through our partnership with them that we're able to offer that through our programming. Our commitment is to increase the number of participants in cruising and sailing in general. And to do that, we maintain standards and curriculum for all levels of learning, from kids to adults. We also maintain the standards for instructor and instructor evaluators. There's a ton of levels of instructors that we offer both in the dinghy and cruising sectors. And we work closely with Transport Canada to ensure that they meet what they call their recreational boating standards. And I think the guys are going to talk about that a bit more later on. All of our instructors who register annually do all sorts of training That includes safe sport training, first aid, CPR. Everyone has a PCOC and a radio operator certificate, so that they know what they're doing when they're on the water. Dave and Dan will go further into the training that's required, but the big one too is that every registered instructor has a criminal background check, which is valid for 3 years. So we do our best to ensure that participants and instructors are protected while they're registering as Sail Canada instructors. I think that is the end of my section of the presentation. So I'm looking forward to handing it over to, oh, no, I wasn't that lucky. One more slide. So a couple stats from our annual report. We reached 40,000 boating enthusiasts last year. We had actually over 1,200 instructors and coaches who registered. So there's an annual registration that instructors have to complete that ensures that they're up to standards to deliver programming. 200 of those were keelboat and cruising instructors, which oversaw over 2,000 participants last summer. So tons and tons of exposure on the water. We have 561 member organizations. So that includes schools, yacht clubs, class associations, things like that. 279 of those are yacht clubs in Canada. So I believe that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I will hand it over to our very talented IEs. Thank you guys so much for doing this tonight. Again, as I said, I'll be here in the chat if you have any questions, and I look forward to watching this presentation. Thanks, Dan and Dave. Over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot for that, Nick. So maybe I'll jump in and then I'll let Dan step up for a moment. My name is Dave Robertson. I'm a Sail Canada basic instructor evaluator. I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta, so feel welcome to insert the punchline there. Just be aware that there are actually quite a few people who are joining us from Alberta tonight, and welcome to everyone, especially my neighbors. I teach primarily this last season. I taught for Glenmore Sailing Club here in Calgary. We operate a fleet of San Juan 21s on the Glenmore Reservoir. And then in the summertime, I've been working on their coastal keelboat program. Glenmore here in Calgary actually owns a Catalina 30 in Sydney, British Columbia, where we do most of our sort of advanced keelboat programs. My life partner, Annalise, who's in the photo there, and I also are diving into our own sailing school next year, focused more on performance boats. We have a lovely old Laser 28 that we love dearly, and now a new to us Andrews 28, which will be her new running partner. So, hey, Dan, do you want to jump in and say a few words?
Yeah, very quickly, and good evening all, and thanks for being here. They said we have people from coast to coast to coast, and thank you for joining in. We wanted to share with you some basic fundamentals as to how to become an instructor. And it's exciting for Sailing Canada, Sail Canada. As to I'm an instructor evaluator. For some of you who don't know what it means, there are very few of us, coast to coast, who have the ability to sign off on new instructors. And our titles are instructor evaluators. It's a long process, but a really rewarding process. So I'm one of those privileged individuals close to coast, and the other pictures reflect sailing extensively in the Caribbean, where I lived for about 5 years in different sailing vessels and bumming around and doing ocean racing, which is the picture on the extra right that I've done. But nothing distracts from the fact that we're pleased to have you here tonight. And we want to share some important information as to how to become an effective and great instructor for Sail Canada. Back to you, Dave.
Great. So I just need to figure out how to change the slide. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about why you might want to become an instructor. for me, I've been an instructor kind of in two different parts of my life. I recently requalified in 2021, but in the late 1980s and early 1990s, I really jumped into instruction because I was an enthusiastic sailor, and it really gave me an opportunity to build and refine my skills as a sailor. I think a lot of people believe that you need to be sort of a master sailor, but in fact, there's some fantastic opportunities. Sail Canada has new pathways, both for DE instructors and for experienced sailors. Of course, one of the great opportunities about this too is that while you're doing all this learning and experience building while teaching others, you can earn a little bit towards some of your sailing expenses. I think for me, though, I would say helping to build and lead sailing communities is really important. And I found through my work at Glenmore here in Calgary and increasingly in Sydney, BC on the coast, that kind of helping to build and lead these sailing communities is really fulfilling. And then, of course, I think maybe the two most important things, really promoting safety and fun on the water. To be clear about this, we're at an interesting time right now. Sailing schools and clubs really need qualified instructors. So if you're thinking about this, this is a really great time to jump in. I want to talk a little bit about our job as sailing instructors. So I believe that our job, sort of job one, is facilitating student success. And I think that it has three components. The first is having fun, of course. The second is imparting new skills and knowledge to our students. And then I think one of the most important things is helping our students be safe in boats, but more importantly, feel safe in boats. Another great opportunity, I think, for fledgling instructors is learning adult learning principles. So I think if you're planning to jump into this process, it's important to understand that as we help you or as we facilitate your entry into becoming an instructor, instructor evaluators are less concerned with teaching you how to sail. We assume that you're bringing great sailing skills already that you can employ on the water. What we're really interested in doing is helping you learn to teach. So some of the principles and values that we bring to the Sail Canada program is, first of all, being learner-centered. So focusing on the needs of our students. And that involves sharing knowledge by engaging, validating, and understanding. The teaching process isn't really just about lecturing or demonstrating. It's really about entering into dialogue with our students to understand that they understand. And then, of course, building skills by, to some degree, demonstrating, but also getting our students to show us the skills and coach them and help motivate them as they teach. I think one of the things that always amazes me when I'm doing a good job as an instructor in the Sail Canada syllabus, I'm actually rarely touching the boat. So in terms of what makes a great instructor, I think these are my personal insights, and perhaps my colleagues might suggest other things, but I would suggest arguably our most successful instructors enjoy being with people. I think we all want to share sailing with the people that we teach. And I think it's important. I think our most successful instructors are patient, and they also have great listening skills. So again, it's really about this idea of dialogue with our students. I think our most successful instructors are also pursuing their own professional development. One of the things that I really appreciate about the system is that it challenges me to continue to improve. It encourages me to enroll in courses. It encourages me to study. And then I think the last thing our most successful instructors do is to help build a welcoming sailing community. For lots of instructors that I've met, they start off looking for an opportunity to practice sailing, to impart their skills, And I think over time, sailing really becomes almost a labor of love. Great question, Malcolm. That is not Nicole. That is actually my sister-in-law, Carla, from Bow Island, Alberta. And that photo is her first night sailing on Sloop de Jours, SDJ, which is our Laser 28 out of Sydney. And I have been told that she is coming back, which is fantastic news for me.
Dave, can I just add 2 words to what you said?
Sure.
Dave is exuding enthusiasm, positivism, and excitement. Those are the traits that we'd love to see in every one of you who want to become an instructor. It is critical. We are the ambassadors to sailors in Canada. Number 2 fundamentals that Dave addressed, which is so often underplayed, is Sail Canada has adopted a set of very modern adult teaching principles, which are basically engage and listen and help them become successful. We moved away from the formulas that were in place 25 years ago. So I can only espouse what Dave is saying, but we are looking for people like you coming in with expertise and willing to have fun and experience the adult learning principles that we so much support. Back to you, Dave.
Fantastic. What Dan doesn't know is how many cups of coffee I consumed before giving this presentation today. So let's talk a little bit about the pathway to becoming an instructor. So I'm going to talk about 4 components here. I'm going to talk a little bit about prior training and experience. I'm going to talk about some pieces of paperwork that we want you to have to show us before you certify. I'm going to talk a little bit about registration and insurance. And then I'm going to talk about the path forward after your initial certification. So we like candidates to have completed the Sail Canada basic coastal cruising, but more and more we're open to considering equivalent levels of training and experience. I think what I would offer is a piece of advice. We know that there are other standards out there, and we know that there are instructors who've qualified under those standards, and we welcome them to join us with Sail Canada. If you can, if you have documentation, even if it's just a simple sailing resume yourself that you yourself have written, that is super, super helpful. So yeah, Rob, definitely I'm thinking of you when I'm saying this. Bring forward your logbooks from other standards, bring forward a sailing resume that you've prepared to summarize your experience. At the clinics, what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to complete a solo sail to demonstrate your skills. So ultimately, we need to be confident that if for some reason you're in a position where you need to get the boat back to the dock yourself, that you can do that. And then we're also going to ask you to deliver lessons that help to demonstrate your knowledge, but more importantly, help us to understand that you have some of the teaching skills. And we're certainly going to help you. We're going to help with coaching you on those teaching skills so that you become an effective adult educator.
Dave,
now,
let me jump in for 1 sec. You were talking, I think, to Rob as well. Some of you will come in from other systems well equipped with certifications in knowledge and sailing and experience. We also, as instructor evaluator, we want to make sure that you fully appreciate the Sail Canada system. Our platforms, our standards, our evaluation methods, it's all prescribed, it's all available for you, but you got to delve into it. So that's why there's no automatic from other systems to come into Sail Canada instructor, because we have a system that is well supported and actually quite mandated by Transport Can. So that's one facet that requires that we meet you, that as Dave is suggesting, we evaluate not only your abilities, but we allow you to dive into the Sail Canada system to better understand it and execute it. Dave, back to you.
Yeah, and Rob, just by way of answering your question, so Rob's just asking that about migrating more advanced credentials over, and sometimes particularly if you're placed a little ways away from water, it can seem like it's a little bit difficult to do some of these things. So first of all, I want to speak to those of you who are on the call tonight and you're kind of on the fence about whether this is a good idea or not. In fact, I actually got an email from Scott yesterday, and Scott, this answer is intended for you. If you are unsure about the skills that you're bringing forward, please don't exclude yourself. We'd love to see an application with a brief sailing resume that helps to summarize your experience. And that experience doesn't necessarily need to be strictly within our system. It can be with other systems. Or if you bring professional skills, for example, if you were a professional mariner before, or that you have professional qualifications, please bring those forward. And then I would suggest that you seek advice from Sail Canada about your options. So that might be reaching out to Nick initially. That might be, he might pass you on to instructor evaluators like Dan or myself or some of my colleagues about your options, particularly in your situation, Rob, where you've got a number of advanced qualifications that you'd like to bring forward. For those of you who are on the fence because you're uncertain about your qualifications, or you're uncertain if you even like the idea of teaching, I always advise, particularly to candidates in Alberta, consider becoming a start keelboat instructor. So this is kind of a small boat qualification. It's designed for keelboats that are a little bit smaller than average. It's really meant to be an introductory course. And if it's a place, it's a really, really good place to kind of find your feet as an instructor, particularly if you're worried that you're not carrying all the credentials that Sail Canada asks you for. I really want to emphasize here, my experience has been, because I like to think of myself as a promising, hardworking candidate, I've always found people within Sail Canada that I can work with, that are prepared to give me advice and who've given me lots of guidance, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. So let's say everything's going great. You have had a great clinic. You're feeling good about your teaching skills. Before certification, we are going to ask you to provide proof that you do have the Pleasure Craft Operator Certificate, the PCOC, that Transport Canada requires. We do want you to have a restricted operator certificate for a marine VHF radio with the digital selective calling qualification. If you are going to be teaching the basic coastal cruising course, particularly on open water, we want you to have the basic coastal navigation exam written to about 90%. That's not to say that you need to take the course. You can challenge Sail Canada courses, and you can have the exam supervised. If you're a start keelboat instructor, you're sailing on smaller keelboats in more closed waters, for lack of a better term, you're not required to have this qualification. Having standard first aid with CPR or higher, we require that. Criminal background check. And because we are a national sporting organization, in the same way that Hockey Canada or Soccer Canada are, we do need complete safe sport training.
There was a question, Chris, I think, asked a question about the VHF DSC. What we need is a proof of your certification, which is valid for life. So VHF radio with DAC endorsement. Doesn't matter when you received it, we just need to see proof of it. Back to you, Dave.
Yeah, and Malcolm, I don't quite understand your question about, and those of us that are in a current certification path, could you say a little bit more about your question there? Oh, right. Okay, fantastic. So you're doing a Keelboat 3 program, which is the basic program with Glenmore Sailing. So Glenmore, of course, we are definitely on closed waters. We're on the reservoir here. I would suggest pulling together that paperwork, particularly if you have other boating experiences. If you want to reach out to me after tonight's meeting, give me a shout. I'm happy to talk it through with you. Is the safe sport an annual training requirement? It is not. Nick, how frequently do people need to do safe sport training? Is it once in a lifetime?
No, it's once every 3 years.
Once every 3 years. Okay, so in fact, I need to go and I'm due to do it. Great. Great. So let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about registration and insurance. So when you initially certify in the system, if you've never had contact with Sail Canada before and you haven't been certified, we ask you to register each year. There's a fee associated with that. And that annual fee includes Sail Canada instructor group liability insurance. So that's an insurance policy that's in place that covers your liability as an instructor. If you want more details about that, I'd suggest reaching out to Nick, and he can put you in touch with our group insurance plan. You really got to keep your first aid and your police checks up to date as well. And I would suggest that you start to plan attending another clinic before your certification expires. So what I've seen as an instructor evaluator is lots of people, what they do is they teach for 3 years. They don't necessarily take an opportunity to jump into a clinic that helps them to advance their standards, and then they have to recertify, which kind of feels like you're a little bit stuck. So if you, let's say if you complete start keelboat certification or basic certification, then start thinking towards what additional levels of certification you might want to pursue in future. The next time you're certified, that certification is actually good for 5 years. Great. And then, some things you can pick from might be intermediate cruising. If you've got the sufficient qualifications, intermediate cruising, advanced cruising, offshore cruising. There are further clinics you can do, or you can also apply. So for example, if you have an extensive racing background, you might want to make an application to be considered as a basic racing keelboat instructor, keelboat spinnaker, cruising catamaran. Great. So just recapping Nick's expectations of instructors. So Sail Canada, as I said before, is Canada's national sporting organization for sailing. And so we exist, we continue to exist by the grace of Sport Canada and Canada's sporting system. And they and we have some requirements. So submitting that criminal background check every 3 years, following Sail Canada's code of conduct, abiding by safe sport from the Coaching Association of Canada, and then supporting Sail Canada policies on equity, accessibility, diversity, and inclusion. As Rob points out, the recertification is unique to Sail Canada. ASA, ISPA, other standards don't require it. If I can offer a perspective on that, I carry 40-hour wilderness first aid, and I'm required to recertify. In fact, I'm working on the recertification process for that right now. And I think it's probably a good thing as I go back through the documentation and I go through the work. Being required to look at those practices is helpful. So just Dan, I guess I'm on almost the last one here, right? So,
yeah, let me jump in for a second. Penny is on the call, and Penny is correct. One of the reasons we want to do recertification is the amount of changes to our system, to the platform, to the documents available to you, to the updates in the standards that we have. We have standards for students, we have standards for instructors, and we have standards for instructor evaluators. All of that is maintained to up-to-date requirements. So 3 years after your first successful program, you'll need to know what's new and what has changed and what will impact the way you practice. And then it's every 5 years because you understand the system better. So Penny's right. There's so many advancements in the sports, including the system that supports it with all the documents in place, that you got to be updated once in a while on what's happening. And that's the key reason we want you to be recertified. It also gives us as an organization as well a bit of a check mark. How are you progressing as an instructor? How are you endorsing the sport? How are you doing? And it gives us a formal opportunity to get together and discuss your progression as an instructor who wants to continue progressing well. Dave, back to you.
Yeah, I think Penny raises a really great point, and I think without putting too, without adding too much to the dialogue, when I talk to potential students and they ask me, well, why should I take a course? It's easier for me to respond by saying, hey, everybody requires education. I participate in it. I find it beneficial because it makes me a better sailor. So I think it's important for us to listen to our own mantra, if you'll have it. Just talk a little bit about the standard. So the Sail Canada standard is pretty venerable in lots of respects. It was actually created in the 1980s. And it undergoes regular review and updating. And in fact, it's the basis for a number of other standards that exist alongside of the Sail Canada standard now. It's a competency-based approach, so we ask students to master competencies within our standards. It undergoes regular updates. So our cruising subcommittee looks at aspects of the standards on a regular basis and makes changes to ensure that it's up to date. And the last point is it's certainly recognized for its quality and rigor. An interesting aspect of the standard is we ask instructors to develop their own lesson plans and methods. Sometimes a controversial topic. Sometimes we have instructors and instructor candidates that say, well, I'm doing all this work. How come you don't create the lesson plans for us? And it's because we believe every instructor has their own style and their own methods and their own characteristics. We want to give you the opportunity to bring those forward. We also believe that that's the way that you're going to become most familiar with the material and the approach that you're going to use when you're teaching. I'll just kind of cover a day in a life. So that's Glenmore Reservoir. I've been teaching on the coast quite a bit in the last couple of years, but I had every time I get a chance to teach a course in the reservoir, I always look forward to it. It's actually a very picturesque spot. So in a day in my life as an instructor, what I enjoy about it is it's often really different. So on the sailing days, which I always look forward to, I'm out teaching sailing skills while I'm keeping students safe and engaged. And then I'm also evaluating students using our competencies and rubrics, and I'm helping facilitate their success by coaching, by advising, by guiding, which is something I really enjoy. We also often do classroom sessions. So the Glenmore program actually usually has classroom sessions prior to our weekend courses and our courses on the coast. And these are opportunities to teach theory using adult learning principles and to coach students using visual aids and course materials. And then no job is complete without some administration work. So our standards require examination in some cases. So sometimes we're evaluating shore knowledge by administering exams. We're recording student achievement in our student record systems, which is called Checklick. And I think the thing I enjoy most is debriefing students. So talking with students about what worked well for them in courses, what things we can achieve, what things we can change or improve in a course is really important to me. And to Malcolm, to your point, I think one of the highlights of teaching, if you're in a setting like Calgary where there's a really active race fleet, but maybe racing isn't your thing, getting out and teaching is a great way to get out sailing on a routine or a regular basis. Oh, Dan, it's over to you. I'm gonna turn over the mic to you at this point.
Thanks, Dave. God, I wish this would be a bit more interactive, to be in line with what we're preaching. But hopefully, from Nick's being representative of Sail Canada and Dave's enthusiasm toward the sport, you're getting antsy to join a program in any one of the provinces to become a Sail Canada keelboat cruising instructor. All right. I want to delve into a couple of things. To become an instructor, you'll need two fundamental sets of knowledge and skills. We refer to ashore as knowledge. So to become a basic cruising instructor, you need to have practical knowledge of all the points that are listed on this slide. The collision regs, for example, recreational boating standard, the website, the procedures, the policies, and the practice. You are going to become well-rounded in the background support and the knowledge in the sport of sailing. Actually, I can share with you that becoming an intermediate cruising instructor is not as big as a step as becoming a basic cruising instructor because of all the stuff that you're going to do. It's all manageable, but you got to do that. The first point made on that slide is, which is missing from this slide, is we provide you standards. So there is one basic cruising instructor standard, singular. And when you teach the basic cruising standard to students, you have performance objectives, let's say 30 of them. So you'll prepare a lesson plan for each of those. Your job is to teach those performance objectives, no more and no less than the list that is provided to you. This way, that's how we keep quality control coast to coast as to how and what is being taught at different levels. And then the next slide talks about the afloat. Dave, can you get me the other slide, please? Thank you. The others are afloat. Afloats are more skills. So again, as an instructor, you'll develop a lesson plan to teach skills. And the strategy that we want you to basically use is you demonstrate, then your students will replicate, hopefully do really well. And then you command that they've achieved the skills and you move on. But that's the second set. You have ashore skills and afloat. Afloat is the skills. And the combination of the two will lead your students to become a certified, completed program done. Next slide, please. All right. Everybody's nervous about that one. You come to a basic cruising instructor clinic, whichever province, and tonight we have representations from coast to coast. And then, so what happens? You have three options. There are three options. You are successful and you become a cruising instructor. You are trained and you have a bit of work left to be done. Or you're in training, you have quite a bit more to do, but there's hope. Most often, if you're not fully successful, most often is some of the prerequisites are missing. Dave alluded to, you have to have your basic coastal navigation to become a basic cruising instructor. You could do the whole clinic, do everything perfectly well, but you're missing one prerequisite. That's when the designation trained comes into play. And we give you time up to 4 months following the clinic. You submit your stuff and then you become successful and therefore certified. Next. Cost of clinics, they vary from coast to coast, from about $900 to about $1,500. Depends on your PSA, the PSA, or the school that you're in. So there's no listing. You'll have to inquire where you want to go and about their cost. But one thing that we need to emphasize is once you decide to engage into becoming an instructor, make sure that you give yourself time to do that. You need at least 48 hours of prep and self-directed learning, and then you need another 40. So to become an instructor, unlike other programs, is involved, is demanding on your time, well rewarding, but demanding on your time. But be fair with yourself and to yourself, and allocate the time needed to become an effective instructor. I've seen over the last few years, sadly, 2 instructors saying, I'm so tied up with time. I'd love to become an instructor, but I can't afford the time. But that's a reality. So make time to become an instructor. Next. Yep. Okay. So we next is to check with your PSA. Nick will follow up with an email, but the key is contact your provincial sailing association, phone or website, and ask for when and where the clinics, the instructor clinics, are occurring, and register accordingly. That's for you to do. Meet a mentor, meet somebody who's done the program, and then just mentorship. They can help you through the process. But the best way to accomplish where is the stuff being held, the clinics being held, and when, is through the Provincial Sailing Association's website, or just give a shout to Nick at the office, at the national office, and he'll help you out. Next. All right. Give me the next slide, please, Dave. All right. I'm not sure how we're going to accomplish this, but use the ability to write a note on this presentation. And if you could just take a second to send Dave, Nick, and I the singular most important thing that you got out of tonight's session, number 1. And number 2 is questions remaining. What questions have you got? But if you could just write something that will flash on everybody's screen on the note side, what is your singular most important thing or surprising things that you learned from tonight?
And you're dialing in from home and you're wondering where this all happens, you'll see a little kind of like text bubble, sort of like a speech bubble in the lower right-hand side of your screen. It's next to an information button and some people, and then you'll see the bubble there. Go ahead and click on that, and then you'll see the chat that's been running in the background there. If you're having trouble, just speak up.
I'll speak up for a quick sec, guys. Thank you so much for the presentation so far. Dan, I think your dreams are going to come true here with the interactive portion of the night, where everyone's going to jump in with a few questions.
Yeah,
Ryan, our CEO, was on the call earlier, and he just wanted to say hi to everyone. He has another meeting, so he couldn't stay. But he wanted me to convey the message that he's really excited to see this group of people interested in becoming cruising instructors, and is really happy to see that, and very thankful that everyone joined. And he's looking forward to seeing your instructor careers blossom, his exact words. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure he would have loved to have been able to say a few words, but we gave the give the spotlight to Dave and Dan tonight. So back over to you guys here for some of these questions. If there's lots
Yeah,
flowing in.
absolutely. A lot of you are commenting that becoming an instructor is less rigid than you thought it was, and it is. We are accommodating. Dave said, hey, if you don't have the basic cruising standard as a student, but you have a long resume, you have experience, and you have some abilities to communicate with adults, we'll help you do the transition. So yes, there is flexibility. We want to have top-notch instructors, and I'm not bragging, but hopefully better than all the other systems available. And we're doing everything in our power to get you there. So that was the essence of the comment. And I think, Joanne, you're talking about the Provincial Sailing Association. Just call Sail Nova Scotia, and they'll inform you as to when the next clinic is. It's starting in Jan, but it will be on water in May. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just jumping in on Scott's remark, and Christine, I'll make sure that we answer your question in just a second here. Yeah, so Scott said you don't need to be a master sailor to become a sailor or sailing instructor, and I think that's something that I would emphasize. My kid flies for Air Canada Jazz. He flies Q400 for them, but early in his aviation career, he was a flight instructor. Taught people as a private pilot with as little as 300 hours of flight. Now, we'd like you to bring a little more experience to sailing instruction, but there are opportunities for you if you see this as a way to build your experience, to get started on instruction. We have entry points for people all across the spectrum. So you can be a master sailor like somebody like Rob, or you might be somebody like Scott who has some commercial background or experience, or you might simply be passionate and getting out, and you might have kind of the base level skills to teach a start keelboat sailing program. We'll help you find the path. And if we can't help you find the path, we'll give you advice on getting ready. All right?
Yeah. And Linda, your question is really well structured. What's the difference between this start keelboat sailing instructor and a basic cruising instructor? The start keelboat sailing instructor has all the same skills on water and all the same skills to demonstrate. The basic cruising instructor, which is the step above, has all that component of a float, of on-water skills and abilities, but has a knowledge segment, a knowledge bit associated with it. And that's the diff between the two. So Dave was right. He says, if you really want to focus at first on the really entry level, focus on the on-water skills. Bring the students on water, show them how to sail and blah, blah, blah. Do all those performance objectives as it's in the standards. And if you want to progress up, then you add a level of knowledge, and then you become a basic cruising instructor. From there, as Dave alluded to, you can become an intermediate cruising instructor, an advanced cruising instructor, an offshore instructor, and so on. But your basic stepping stone is either your start keelboat cruising instructor or your basic cruising instructor, depending on how much time you want to devote to becoming an instructor in the first year. Dave, back to you.
Yeah, Linda, you know what I'll do too is it's really about the courses that you can teach for the students. And what I'll do is, while Christine's asking her question, is I will go onto the Sail Canada website, and I will post the standards for, I think there's the introduction to sailing, the start keelboat sailing, and the basic courses, and you can kind of compare those. So, hey, Christine, I know that you've been hanging in there with a question. Do you want to hit us? You might want to take yourself off mute though, so we can hear you. You're still on mute, Christine. We can't hear you. If you want, you can also just type it in the chat window as well if you like.
Dave, as we're waiting for Christine, basically, all the standard that we've been talking about, and a standard is full of performance objective, it's all on the public website of Sail Canada. There's nothing hidden there. Just go to sailing.ca, the Sail Canada website, look at education, and you'll see every single standard that we've been talking about tonight. 4 students, 4 instructors, and 4 instructors evaluators. We are making that available worldwide, and many of the sailing associations worldwide have the same standards as we do. So ours are all available. That's what we teach. Back to you, Dave.
Christine, how are you making out there? Were you able to figure out the mute button there? No, not so much.
Malcolm, you're on. Malcolm?
Okay. You guys should be able to hear me.
Sure.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for providing all the content. I think for myself, like I'm actually used to teach swimming lessons, used to be a lifeguard. Now I'm a volleyball coach. So I've been through the coaching and teaching avenue throughout most of my life. But I think that's one maybe comment I'll make is that, is there going to be a way for myself as someone who's getting into sailing, has been for like the last couple of years now, and considering this educational path, is there going to be a way for me to like track my certifications online? I think there was something from the instructor's point of view where they record your certification, but is there somewhere that I'll be able to go in and be able to see what I'm missing and what is necessary? So there's almost like an easy checklist for an instructor or anyone on an educational path to follow.
Yeah, Dan, do you want to take that one?
Oh, absolutely. We're for all the knowledge bit of the training program for basic cruising instructor and start keelboat cruising instructors, we're using a platform, a Sail Canada based educational platform, and it tracks and it's transparent. And you go on and you say, "Hey, Malcolm, that bit is missing here," or "You finished this segment, this segment, this segment." And in my case, I sent you, if you partook into one of my clinic, you get a weekly report, what has been done, what is left to be done, and tracking your success. But the platform from Sail Canada does exactly what you're asking, Malcolm.
Perfect. And I think I saw, Dave, it's almost like we almost have a little bit of a local mentor too. Like we have someone in Ontario, we have someone in Alberta, we have someone that we can connect with and be able to just kind of work together with.
And
yeah, you know, one of the things, oh, sorry, Dan, I cut in on you there.
Please go ahead, because I think we're gonna have the same answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest lessons for me has been, you know, when I recertified in 2021, you know, I wasn't really expecting to, and it's a long story, which I'll share, you know, at the pub one night. But what I did was I started reaching out and working with instructor evaluators that I felt I had good relationships with, and you know, got that sort of guidance, because you know, sometimes it can feel like it's not clear what you need to do next, or why things are or aren't happening the way that you expect. So having a good relationship with an instructor evaluator who you can reach out to and say, "Hey, am I ready to do this? Like, really, should I be thinking about doing this? What do I really need to do this? You know, how do I get ready?" All those kinds of things. And I think good IEs will help you with that. Christine, I want to just hit on you, because I think I'm at fault for last year's clinic. So one of the struggles that we run into in clinics is getting kind of the number of people that we need. So we have 2 flavors of clinic. In Alberta last year, we had a number of instructors that needed to recertify, and we had a limited expression of interest from new instructors. So last year, the clinic was focused entirely on recertification. So that was for instructors who came forward and said they needed to recertify in order to continue. Unfortunately, you were the only individual in Alberta last year who came forward and said that they wanted to get going as a net new instructor. This year, those recertifications are out of the way. People are busy and they're doing their thing. Really, this year in Alberta, we're trying to get the word out, and we're trying to focus on folks who want to get a start, sort of get in the door and get started on instruction. So I'm hoping that this will be your year.
Okay.
And I'll just
I'd
maybe
like-
add on top of that, Dave. That is actually what I'm seeing, is that I think there's I don't even know if you want to call it a new generation, but there's like a new age group of people that are looking to kind of get started, and that's something that I think Sail Canada can really capitalize on if we take that on.
It's a big conversation on our side, Malcolm, about the demographics, the general who's instructing. And I think, Dan alluded to it earlier, which is this sort of used to be kind of positioned as something that you do when you retire. And hey, like if you're thinking about retiring and teaching sailing, we welcome you. But if you are, younger and this is a hobby that really appeals to you and you want to be involved, we're going to find a place for you as well, because we need a breadth and diversity of instruction of different types of instructors. So
what I'd like to do, Dave, if it's possible, is probably, if you have any remaining questions, to kind of post them. And Dave and I and Nick are going to try to close the meeting in next 10, but it's time now to use the same system as Dave suggested and post some questions we can answer, quick fire answers, and then bring the meeting to a close with an opportunity for each and every one of you to write to Nick and to continue that conversation, to call Nick at the office and continue that conversation. Dave's number and my numbers are public domain through the Sail Canada website. We are easy to reach. So let me ask anybody who's got remaining burning questions to address, to do it now. And then I'm opening the door to reach out to Nick, Dave, or myself for any remaining questions. Paul? Paul, you're muted.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
What sort of support or programs do you have specifically geared towards helping instructors teach adults?
The program is we provide the standard that includes all the items that have to be taught, both on the knowledge side and on the skills side. 1, 2, we provide a template that you can create your lesson plans with to deliver those performance objectives. 3, when you go to the clinic, you'll practice this and your lesson plans will be improved by the critiques from the group. 4, we provide you the evaluation tools that you need. On the knowledge side, Sail Canada has all the tests. Number 2 is on the afloat skills. We have evaluation sheets that allow you to properly assess students. And finally, we assist you with the registration process of new successful students to the Sail Canada database, which is good for life. So there's assistance everywhere, but I cannot emphasize enough what David said. Dave said you have support from your community and your colleagues to go through some of the difficult steps at first, and this is for real. So those are 5 strategies to help you support what you're doing.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, I'm going to roll back to a question that may have gotten kind of lost in the scroll there. So there was a question from someone just about using your own vessel for the purposes of teaching. I'm I have been through this process myself, getting boats ready to meet the recreational boating standard. So I'll just speak about it very briefly, but I would encourage you. I've actually just dropped my email in the chat there if you want to reach out and talk to me about it a little bit more. So as a boat owner who wants to teach on their boat, you do have to meet a set of standards that Transport Canada sets out for you. There's kind of a special exemption under the Canada Shipping Act, which allows you as a recreational boating school to teach on your own vessel. That's a conversation between you and Transport Canada. I can kind of fill you in a little bit or point you in the direction of some resources if you're interested. One of the things that's interesting and advantageous about Sail Canada is that for sort of single shingle style instructors, they do have an insurance program that allows boat owners who instruct to extend that liability insurance to their boat. Dan, I think you would say that it provides kind of a really basic foundational level of insurance. And maybe if you know, we would advise you to speak to your broker before choosing your insurance solutions. But it is an option that is available to Sail Canada instructors to get you started. So, and hey, Bob, see you tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for the text there.
Any other questions before we roll up? Any other questions before we close up? Oh, thanks,
Joe,
Rob, for the info. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Joanne, go ahead. And you're muted.
Hi. Oh, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So my question was, you know, being a member of the squadron here in Nova Scotia, we had more people join the club during COVID than ever, which was interesting. What is the current demand for people seeking these courses, basic cruising, like keelboat? What is your estimate of the upcoming demand?
Well, this is a fabulous question, Joanne. Thanks for asking it. Depending on where you live, those of you who are at least Ontario-based, BC-based, Alberta-based, you become an instructor, just go to a club and they'll hire you. Those who are not in those situations, just before joining this meeting, Joanne, I was promoting to yacht clubs the need to offer more keelboat cruising programs to keep their membership safe on water, interested, up to date, and generating revenue for their own clubs. So depending on where you live, the answer is a bit different, but overall Canada-wide, man, is there a demand for instructors. And that's, Dave and I get calls from sailing clubs looking for instructors all the time, even as guest instructors, other provinces. So yes, there is a demand. And yeah.
So Dan, for me specifically, you know, the number of years I've sailed and, you know, cruised for periods, I'm really inspired to teach women, you know, to have more confidence, older women whose husbands want to cruise and the woman doesn't necessarily, and I know I'm making it gender based, but it's my experience, doesn't have the same level of confidence. And
Yes.
I would love to promote that in the sport and empower women to feel confident on in cruising passages, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, Joanne, there are some clubs in Nova Scotia that have women sailing programs for basic cruising standards or start keelboat cruising standards, where they demand that the instructor be a female. And we've been so successful with this, and I can give you 4 names out of the top of my head of instructors who almost do that for a living. So we'll be in touch very soon, you and I on offline, but the business model is alive and well.
Yeah, Dan, if I can add to that, I was a little bit startled. I was having a conversation with one of my instructor colleagues out in Sydney, and my partner and I are getting ready to open our own school out there based on a lot of the great things that I've learned from Glenmore Sailing Club here in its graduated program here in Calgary. Next season, I'm going to continue to teach for Glenmore a little bit because I just really love their program. It's fantastic for accessibility. But, I was talking to my colleague Gordy at Starlight, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and I just want you to know, and I don't want there to be any hard feelings about competition. And he's like, how soon can you get started? Right now, we have more instructors getting ready to retire than we do instructors coming into the system. And it's important for us to start to develop the successors that we need to keep the system vital. I think it's also really important that we take a good hard look at our demographics. So Joanne and Christine, I'm super excited to hear you talk about taking a special interest in women. I think there's a whole ton of opportunities in terms of teaching young people, old people, new Canadians, all kinds of folks. And if you folks are ready to step into the challenge, it's going to be great for Sail Canada and for sailing in Canada generally.
Yeah. And Linda just said, I'm in Ottawa.
Contact information for you. I'm still working on it. Okay, so hang in there, buddy.
Linda says, I'm in Ottawa. Man, do we have contacts for you in Ottawa? All right. I'll let, I think, Joanne, you and first, and then Christine. And afterward, I'd like to ask Nick to bring the whole thing to a close, if it's all right. Joanne, Christine, Nick, with closing comments from Dave and I at the end. Come on, Joanne.
Oh, no, I'm excited that Christine and other people are interested in this topic. In my experience, even in the young women that I race and cruise with, it's very empowering, and that's important to me to get more women who are cruising or keelboat with their husband empowered with knowledge and skills for so many reasons. Thanks for this. I really appreciate it, guys. It was very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Christine, you're next.
I don't know why the thing is not working. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Oh, yay. Okay. So, is there a way to find, how can I get in touch with Joanne? If I wrote down her name, would I be able to connect through Sail Canada?
That's a great question.
Just to be able to, and then maybe we could go offline and maybe start something, because the reason that I'm interested in helping the Glenmore fill some of their needs for more people to take the course is because I've been one of the skippers for 3 or 4 years now for the Win Women in Wine that they have. And I love it. I take people out I don't know, and they have just an amazing time.
Yeah. So Christine,
if it's okay with you both, if you give me the thumbs up, I'll just send you both an email.
Please, I'm totally fine with all my points being shared.
Fantastic. Okay. Nick, first is for you to attempt to close the meeting. Dave second, and I will have the last word. Nick?
That's dangerous, Dan, to elect yourself with the last word.
That's fine.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you both, Dan and Dave, for putting this together and for running the show tonight. It's been great. I think there's some palpable excitement from the group and some good ideas that came out of it. So thank you everyone for joining. Like Dan has said many times, I will follow up with an email with some information. You can call or email me as much as you want. I think I shared that list of all the things that I do at Sail Canada, so I can't talk about cruising for 8 hours a day every day, but I would love to. But I could probably slot you in for 1 or 2. Yeah, thanks for joining. I look forward to hearing from you and helping you all become cruising instructors. So over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Nick. Dave?
Yeah, no, thanks for everybody for joining. Really fantastic to see such a great turnout and some really fantastic questions tonight. For those of you in Alberta, this is kind of my obligation as an Alberta-based IE. Really encourage you to reach out to Sail Alberta to let them know. The hosts, I suspect, for this clinic will probably be Glenmore Sailing Club in Calgary. So if you've got some connections there, please reach out to them. I know that people who are coming from Glenmore, there's discussion about a meeting for potential instructor candidates on Saturday, February 8th. And Glenmore will kind of let you know, they're eager to get people, so they'll kind of let you know what the program is if you're based in Calgary. So I encourage you to reach out to your manager contact at Glenmore. Dan, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody. Sail Canada will support your endeavor. If it looks like a shitload of stuff tonight, the structure, the database, the standards, the performance objectives, the lesson plans, it may be a lot, but we will help you become the instructor that you want to become. We're selfish. Sail Canada needs great instructors. The schools are begging for instructors. And as Joanne was saying, there are some female programs that are begging from instructors. And we have new immigrants programs that are so critical in Nova Scotia that are begging for instructors. So we need you. We'll support you. And with the right demonstration of enthusiasm, of skills, knowledge, and all that stuff, you'll become a successful instructor. So reach out, and we will make sure that we are connected. On this note, unless it's urgent issues, I'd like to bring this meeting to a close and thank you all for participating.